Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jay Kohn. Janelle is off tonight. The nation's highest court has an unexpected opening. On the heels of two major rulings just this past week, Justice Anthony Kennedy announces he is hanging up his robes for good. That announcement today gives President Trump a chance to reshape the high court. Angelica Alvarez tonight has the latest.
President Trump rallied supporters in North Dakota late Wednesday, with his search for a new Supreme Court justice already underway.
We have to pick a great one. We have to pick one that's going to be there for 40 years, 45 years.
That process began immediately after the president received a letter from Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy earlier in the day, informing him of his decision to retire next month.
He felt confident in me to make the right choice and carry on his great legacy.
Nominated by President Ronald Reagan in 1987, Kennedy forged a reputation as a moderate conservative. He held the key swing vote in many 5-4 rulings, siding with liberals in legalizing gay marriage and refusing to overturn Roe v. Wade.
The cases swing, I don't.
Justice Kennedy's retirement gives President Trump a chance to nominate a second justice to the Supreme Court, one who will almost certainly be a solid conservative.
Democrats want judges who will rewrite the Constitution any way they want to do it.
Democrats are bracing for a fight.
I want to get a judge that makes decisions based on the law and not on ideology.
Republicans say they'd like to have a new justice in place before midterm elections.
At this particular time, it's the Senate's obligation to move ahead.
With Republicans in control of the Senate, Kennedy's successor could turn the Supreme Court conservative for a generation. Angelica Alvarez, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
President Trump says he is already looking over a list of some 25 potential nominees. Secretary of the Interior Ryan Zinke here in Billings today to sign a big check. That check for $40 million, and it goes to Montana communities to compensate for federal land that cannot be taxed. Zinke was confirmed as Interior Secretary back in March of 2017. He's the first Montanan to occupy a cabinet position. Following the check signing today, Zinke joined us here in studio for a wide-ranging discussion on the controversy that swirls around him and his department and his admiration for President Trump.
You know, I've been shot at before. I'm very comfortable with it. So they make an issue of my travel. So it goes through an IG report. At the end of the day, the IG report, I followed all policy, procedures, and law. They made an issue about Hatch Act. Goes through an investigation, complete. I followed all law, absolutely exonerated. I followed all rules, regulations. You know, I don't know how many millions of dollars they spend on this thing, but it's a waste. You know, I have a full team of ethics professionals that look at my schedule. I have a whole team of lawyers that look at my schedule. I'm scrutinized. I think this administration is scrutinized more than any administration in the history of this country, and it's fine. But you do right and fear no man, and it is better to charge up a hill under fire than cower in a foxhole. And Interior, under my watch, is going to do the right thing. He's full throttle. And I've worked for generals and admirals that are battle rhythms that are 18 hours a day, day after day after day, serving the country. No one is working harder than President Trump, and I've never seen anybody with better instinct. He has great instinct on what's right, and he doesn't mind, you know, pressing ahead on that instinct. And clearly, I think he's in the office because America was not satisfied with the direction we're going. It was time to change. It's time to drain the swamp. And you just look at the regulations alone. When he came in and said, for every one you put in, I want to take out 2. He's taken out 22. So even that has surpassed his expectation. But he holds the cabinet members, I got to tell you, to the numbers, just like a business CEO. You have to deliver.
And while Secretary Zinke could not confirm anything, we need to tell you that rumors are swirling in our state that President Trump is planning a visit here. The rumblings of a Trump visit in the works, making the rounds of Montana news outlets, and those sources say the top 2 locations for a possible Trump rally would be in Great Falls or here in Billings, possibly within the next 2 weeks. We'll keep you posted. History repeating itself last night as a chunk of the Billings rims comes tumbling down precariously close to homes. The late night event forced the closure of a city street and left one homeowner without a car or a garage. Take a look at this picture. It's taken by homeowner Sherry Lee, and it pretty much tells the story. You can see her Chevy Suburban partially crushed, her garage heavily damaged. Lee was at home when this slide happened around 9:45 last night. She told us it sounded like the proverbial freight train, but she knew at once what that sound was. Lee also operates Res Dog Rescue and tells us fortunately none of the pets staying at her home were injured.
Immediately after the boulders stopped, the fire department were there, Northwest Energy was there, we had power lines down, they got the power lines secured. My next door neighbor and I don't have power, but everybody else has power. We've got water and everything, but both my neighbor and I are both stuck as far as the vehicles because we can't get out on the road. Hopefully the city will be able to move the boulders pretty soon, but they're pretty large boulders, so it might take a while.
Here's a view of the destruction in the daylight today. Mountain View Boulevard above MSUB's Altura West Gymnasium still closed off to traffic. Billings police say Lee's garage was the only structure damaged. Fortunately, again, there were no injuries involved. By the way, that vehicle crushed by the boulder was used to transport the many rescue dogs that Lee cares for. We can tell you that a fundraiser on Facebook already has raised nearly $6,000 to help her out. Tuesday's rock slide, a bit of deja vu for homeowners living beneath the rim rocks. Q2's Connor Pregitzer tonight gives us a closer look at that recent history.
In 2010, a rock slide destroyed a home on Granite Avenue. The owners of that home sued the city of Billings and the state of Montana for damages, contending that negligence on the part of those governing bodies had led to the slide. The result of that lawsuit was the city and state being cleared of all responsibility. There was another fall in the same area in 2011, and in 2014 there was a major slide that closed a portion of Zimmerman Trail for almost a month. 2016, Phipps Park was closed after slides within the park. At the current slide site, city engineer Debbie Melling says that crews were able to clear access so that residents could get into homes and get vehicles out. However, the process of cleanup will be a much longer one and will likely require specialist outside contractors. After the 2014 event, Geostabilization International out of Colorado was hired at a price tag of around $700,000 to assist in cleanup and stabilization. Terracon, a geotechnical firm from Billings, has been hired to begin an assessment of the hillside. Now, Melling says that after a very wet spring, it is not too surprising that there is instability in the rims. In Billings, Connor Pregitzer, MTN News.
And Connor tells us that city engineers are monitoring several areas close to this recent slide site to check for potential instability. And they tell us they are not convinced that all the rock that is likely to fall has come down in this event. Citizens still being asked to avoid that area. Montana Senator John Tester, the ranking member of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, posed tough questions and had some tough words during today's confirmation hearing for new VA Secretary nominee Robert Wilkie. Tester's message to Wilkie: the buck stops with you.
My only advice to you is to take the cues from the veterans, the folks that are sitting in this audience, and do what you think is right, even if political forces threaten your job, because I want you to succeed. I really want you to succeed. And I think the veterans across this country, in fact, I know the veterans across this country want you to succeed too. This post requires courage, honesty, integrity, and a vision for the future. Leading this nation's largest healthcare system is no small task, and it demands the very best.
It was President Trump who fired VA Secretary David Shulkin last March. His earlier pick for the position, Ronnie Jackson, withdrew from consideration after on-the-job misconduct allegations. Speaking of the VA, local veterans tonight learning more about the health care benefits they qualify for. All this during a special VA health fair in Billings. Officials from the Veterans Administration hosting the fair to help educate veterans about the health care options now available from the Veterans Administration. Every year, more than 1,200 health care facilities serve as many as 9 million U.S. veterans. People from 9 departments here in Billings tonight helped explain the benefits now available.
Sometimes it appears a bit complex and bureaucratic, and so we want to break down those barriers by having events like this. From my capacity, I think it's the most noble mission in federal government is to provide the services for these earned benefits that our veterans have done. I've done it for 35 years, and I'm just honored and humbled to be able to do that.
The VA's Rocky Mountain Region Network includes Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and Oklahoma, all on hand for that health fair meeting tonight in Billings. On to the weather scene. It's been gorgeous lately, but come tomorrow, our skies are going to look drastically different. Our chief forecaster, Bob McGuire, to bring us the bad news, Bob.
We looked all over the state. We could look maybe 400 or 500 miles. We saw our first rain shower. That was up by Kalispell today. But you'll notice our thunderstorm outlook for today still shows a few isolated showers possible across the extreme southeast corner of the state. A marginal risk of severe storms over into the Dakotas. So really, most of Montana enjoyed a gorgeous day today. Now, take a look at what's going to happen tomorrow. Oh, yeah. We've got a lot of moisture moving in, a lot of instability. An upper level trough will move through. Warmer temperatures. All this is going to come to play. And what it means? It means we're going to see a marginal risk of severe storms for Billings, increasing risk for Miles City, and multiple severe thunderstorms from extreme eastern Montana all the way in towards the Dakotas. Could see several tornadoes and a lot of hail moving in tomorrow, probably sometime tomorrow night. We'll have more of that coming your way in a few more minutes. Jay?
All right, thank you, Bob. Up next on tonight's 10 o'clock news, when wildlife and someone's way of life clash, well, it usually spells trouble for both parties. We'll explain. Plus, these goats are joining the Air Force, but find out why they're sticking close to home. And in sports coming up, your Mustangs face a pitcher who grew up in Missoula. Scott shows us tonight if the Ponies can snap their 3-game losing skid.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Kohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.